Do you wish you'd have had the same opportunity to have some kind of counselling when you were young?
Of course, and that's what this is all about. I am still now, 35 odd years later, deeply scarred by what happened to me. You heard me there, it was a defining moment of my life that changed the way I act and behave, and it was devastating. And we didn't know what to do. You know, this was the mid-80s. You just didn't do that type of thing. My sister, my father and I, we were all incredibly wounded for such a long time. And so a few years ago, Grief Encounter, which is the charity that I'm involved with, asked me if I'd become a patron because, sadly, a friend's children were going through counselling and they'd done a good job. And initially I said no, because I didn't want to have to expose why I was relevant to be a patron. It was that visceral for me that I was just like, I can't do this. I've never spoken about it. So I agreed to become a patron, and then last year on Mother's Day I agreed to do that. It's the only time in my life I will ever talk about it, because I can't do it again.
But it was clear that you found that very difficult to do.
I did, and but actually it was quite cathartic.
What reaction did you get from people after that interview?
Well, the funny thing, I'd actually planned stupidly. The next day I had a romantic break away with my wife. We'd gone away for a couple of days. I genuinely had tens of thousands of messages on social media. It went viral. It was watched everywhere. It was the most watched thing on the BBC website for 3 days. And so many other people said, I've never spoken about it either, and it happened to me and it affected me in exactly the same way. And so it was like coming out of the grief closet. And I'm very glad that I've done it. And it was helpful. That talking about it's been helpful. I'm better at it now. I can now admit that I went through that. I wouldn't even tell anyone that I'd been through what I'd been through. And I can now admit it, which is why when Grief Encounter, the charity, told me they'd always dreamed of setting up a helpline because they do counselling so that kids could pick up the phone there and then, or parents could pick up the phone there and then, you can go online and do online chat. That was their dream, and they told me about it. Normally my charity funds are for financial education. I just had the one phone call and I said, well, let's do it, I'll pay for it. Yes. And we're doing it. And it launched today for Mother's Day.
It's launched today, which is fantastic.
Probably work out the connection.
Well done. It's a free service, so a child can pick up a phone at any time, day or night?
It's free, it's confidential. You can call it, it doesn't have to, it's not just phones these days, it's online chat and it's text. And obviously, we would like them to do it with their parental permission, but you can pick it up and call, and there will be someone there to give you advice and guidance. And the charity has been doing counselling for a long time, and I've met some, you know, I went to their gala dinner the other day. I've got tears in my eyes now. If you want to cry, is when the Grief Encounter choir of 6 to 12-year-olds who've all lost somebody come on and sing Jealous of the Angels. Whoa. Now, I tell you what, that's the way to get your eyes going. Yeah.
Brenda has had a similar experience. You lost both your parents.
Yeah, I lost both of my parents in a car crash when I was just 4 years old. And for me, I totally understand and I can relate to you not wanting to open up about it, but like 3-4 years ago, I went to see a counsellor and they said that I needed grief counselling, and it did help me, but I believe what you say, it's a defining moment from the age of 4. I've never really been a child. I've kind of grown up, and a lot of my attitudes and how I am towards people, I'm very straightforward, and you know, I kind of,
like Martin said, no, you know, we just didn't talk about it then.
Didn't talk to my father or my sister. We just didn't talk. We just got on because none of us could cope emotionally with having the conversation about this horrible, just like you, sudden change to our lives that we hadn't. One day my mum was there and we were a happy, lovely family, and the next day it was gone. I mean, at 4, I'm not sure. Do you remember it?
Well, this is what I was going to say. For me, I sometimes wonder I know I'm not better not having my parents, but not having those memories. I don't have any memories apart from a curry sauce smell. That's you know, it's really weird how I remember that. But then I wonder, am I better than having my parents and then losing them later? It's such a weird.
I struggle to remember anything other than the pain. I struggle to remember. You know, I said in that interview at the end, what I'm trying to do is learn to remember the wonderful person I lost, not learn to remember that I lost a wonderful person. And
without making you relive that dreadful day.
So I have to tell you, I so don't want to be here right now. But sometimes when you have a voice, you have a responsibility, and that's why I'm here. So forgive me going defensive on you, but I'm trying.
No. Listen, I completely understand it. But a very close friend of mine lost her husband, and her 2 children were teenagers, and I just saw what happened to that. Her husband was my trainer, and he'd been my trainer for 10 years, and I was the last person that saw him, and then he went back home and dropped down dead of an undiagnosed heart condition, and those 2 teenage children suddenly lost their dad like that. They were at school. And they had counselling, but for my friend, their mother, it was so challenging for her because she had to deal with the pain of losing her husband and the children losing their dad. And I think the idea of having a phone service that you can ring up, and you need not, I know you said you need parental permission, but don't you think...
Would like them to have
would
parental
like
permission.
it. But it was... I think that teenagers in particular need somebody that they can go to that's their person, that's, you know, that's neutral.
Do you know, I agree. And, you know, my dad, he's trying to look after us and he's a wonderful man. But, of course, he was suffering himself. He'd just lost his wife in a day and had 2 kids to bring up. And there's so much that you have to learn about grief. I was talking to somebody the other day in this sense, and I said, one of the lessons I learnt is you feel guilty about being happy. Right? I remember for years feeling guilty every time I was happy because why should I be happy? And actually, my philosophy now is you grab every moment of happiness that you can possibly have. And as an adult, you know, my mum was... It just doesn't bear thinking about. My mum was 35, right? She was so much younger than I am now when she went. And I look and I think, God forbid anything happened to me. The last thing I'd want is the people who love me to be constantly upset and miserable and sad. So we all have to remember when we're going through grief how we would want someone to remember us. Yes, we'd want them to miss us. Yes, we'd want them to care. Of course, but we wouldn't want it to mean that they were constantly miserable and upset. And I think those are things that you can't see when that horrible fog of blackness is around you for years as it was. You can't see that. Now, I'm not the best advocate and I'm not a counsellor. Luckily enough, I'm rich enough to pay for somebody else to do it, frankly. But I think one of the reasons for being on this programme, I'm afraid there are people even in this audience right now who they'll know someone. 1 child in every classroom will lose a parent before they are 18. And what we have to do, when I walked back to that classroom the next day, nobody said anything, because they weren't told what to do. Nobody said anything to me. It was as if it had never happened. It was as if I'd never had a mother who I'd just lost. And actually, life has changed around. So my message here, and the reason I'm sitting here with my buttocks clenched, talking to you and doing this right now, and I'm on here, is frankly, it's a plug. There is a helpline. If you hear of somebody in this position, there is somebody they can call. They can go and get counselling. And by doing this, I hope someone in my position in 35 years' time, excuse the snot, in 35 years' time won't... Well, you can't cure grief, but they won't have the scars of the depth I do.
Yeah. The Grief Talk helpline is a free helpline, and that is open today. Your mum would be very proud of you, I'm sure. Thank you so much, Martin.